Old West Impresario, a game by TMG in which you will be building a city or a town in the Old West. It is a game of dice drafting, tableau building, and engine building. So it's not just that you are forming a tableau representing your town in order to score points, but you're also trying to synergize the various styles that you have so that they do more, so that you can do more things for the same opportunity cost of using a die. As you will see, the main mechanic is you take a die from the central area and you use it to do something. 2 to 4 players. It plays fast once players know what to do. The first game is gonna drag a little bit probably because there are just many icons, many symbols, many unique effects related to the buildings of the town that players just have to be familiar with. There's no other way around it. You play the second time with the same people, the game will move much faster, and also you will probably have less analysis paralysis, although that may be a ghost that will haunt your game experience from time to time. But without further ado, Old West Impresario. Let's see how it works. To set up the game, first you place the 6 tiles on the table in the order that you see. Then you shuffle this large deck of building tiles and you place 2 under each numerical tile. Next, you pick up dice. You're going to use a number of dice equal to 2 per player plus 1. So if you're playing with 3 people, then we have 7 dice. At the beginning of a round, the dice are rolled and they're placed on the tiles corresponding, that was a 4 I think, corresponding to what was rolled, with a nice spread here. Each player will receive a character represented by a card such as this one. Each character will allow you to break or bend the rules of the game in some way, giving you special, unique benefits, many of which are really powerful. So you'll have your character. You start with $3. And also you have a town hall. Town hall, like other buildings, well, it has a symbol here. This is the number that activates the building. Say if I had this building in my town, a die showing a 2 will activate it. You start with a town hall, which is a wild, so any number will activate it. And then you have icons here, and for example, that tells you that when you spend a coin, you can perform the building action, or instead, when you activate the town, instead of spending a coin and building a building, you can collect a coin from the bank. Now, when your turn comes around, you can do one of 3 things. Actually, you must do one of 3 things, and they all involve choosing a die and removing it from the display and putting it in your personal area. You can do so to simply discard a card that is there, which is then replaced, and collect 3 coins. That's one of the things that you can do. Something else that you can do is you can take a die and pick up a tile from under the space that you just selected and put it in your town. Now, when you take a tile, it will go face down. Think of it as a blueprint. Basically, it is under construction. You are not, you won't be able to use it just yet. And so you place it there, and for now, nothing else happens. Another thing that you can do, and when you place it, it has to be next to a building that has already been constructed, that is face up. And suppose this is just to give you a sense of how it works. Actually, there's another type of building which is important, native settlement. They are double-sided. They don't have a front and back. They have the same illustration on both sides because they don't need to be built. When you acquire them, you simply place them in your town. Again, they need to be next to a building that was already built, and they give you an advantage indicated by those icons only once. For example, that native settlement will give you 2 people. These people are worth victory points at the end of the game, but they can also be used as resources during the game itself. And suppose that after a couple of rounds, my town sort of looks like this. Now, Remember what we said so far? You can take a die and simply burn a tile to gain 3 coins. You can take a tile and add it face down to your town, like in this case. Or you can take a die to activate your town. Something important is that when you take a die, actually, you can spend a coin to modify its result by 1, +1 or -1. And for that purpose, pretty much the sequence wraps around. So 6 + 1 is 1, and 1 - 1 is 6. So that gives you a little more flexibility. What does it mean to activate your town? It means that you selected a die to activate your town, and now you can activate any and all buildings in your town that show that number. In this case, for example, remember this is a wall, so I say, okay, I'm using a 4 to activate my town, then I'm gonna spend a coin to build a building, and I build this building here. Then my 4 also allows me to activate that building that also has a 4, and so I can take the action indicated there, which is I can spend a coin to collect 2 more people to put in my personal stack. And there are a lot of other interesting actions here. Maybe after a while my town would be like this. Now a 4 is really neat because a 4 allows me to activate that one, and that one. So on one hand, you can choose to specialize, which is awesome. You get to activate little things for a single die. It's also dangerous because then people notice that and they're gonna take that type of die from you constantly. So there's diversifying is also very useful. Basically, you continue like this, building your town and activating effects that, as you can imagine, will give you people, will give you money, will allow you to build things more efficiently, and also will allow you to create combinations that will score at the end of the game. Basically, the tiles may give an advantage now and then also allow you to score at the end of the game. The game continues until a player has built 15 buildings or until all of the tiles in the supply have been assigned, or until the supply of people that comes with the game is exhausted. Well, not exactly the one that comes with the game. You will have a certain number of people in that supply depending on the number of players. So when that happens, it is time to collect final points. Now, actually, I neglected to tell you something. During the game, there will also be cards there that will allow you to collect the card itself and score the reward points at the end if you meet the condition on the card. Say the first player to build 12 buildings will take that card, which is worth 4 points, and there's a gold frame, and leave a silver one there, which presents the same condition but is worth less. And there is a big stack of these wanted cards. They always work in pairs of silver plus gold, and you will have 3 different ones in each game. Now, when it comes to scoring, there's gonna be a little bit of work. The scoring pad has many boxes, as you can see. And here, luckily enough, the back of the rule book is a really good player aid, and you'll become familiar with it. You'll stare at it for a long time until you figure out how things work and you start speaking Iconese, or at least you can read Iconese. Say, for example, all these buildings, they have no effect during the game, but they allow you to score in different ways. I'm not gonna read them all. You can pause the video if you wanna read. Other buildings also will allow you to score. Say, if you're the player with the most native settlements, you score for every 3 points. If you have an inn, then you score 1 victory point for each adjacent native settlement. You have a mine, 2 victory points if there is an adjacent inn, +1 for each distillery. These miners know how to party, that's for sure. Distillery scores point if it's adjacent to saloons. Saloons adjacent to distillery is like a vicious circle or a virtuous one. Carpenter, they like to go to church, I guess, or they get a lot of work from churches because they score a point for being next to a church, plus 4 victory points for being completely surrounded by buildings. Churches have this interesting power of allowing you to activate other buildings during the game. As for final scoring, they score 1 victory point per empty space next to them. They like the quiet, plus, however, being next to the carpenter. The Undertaker has powerful effects during the game, but will score you negative victory points for each building adjacent to it. No one likes to have an Undertaker downtown, so put them on the edges of your town. So you score all of those buildings, you take into account the penalty from the Undertaker. Then you have, maybe you noticed during my overview, these symbols here in the top left corner of the tiles. Basically oil drops, cotton, oil drops, and railroads. At the end of the game, you score 1 point for your largest group of railroad tiles against and next to each other, adjacent to one another. Here, you score 1 point for each per group of cotton. So this is the other way around. You want the railroad next to each other, but you want the cotton plantations far from one another. For example, this would be 2 points because it's 2 groups, but this would be only 1 point because it's 1 group of cotton. My railroad here is still of 2, but now it's 3 because I'm cool that way. As for oil, if you are the player that has the most oil, each oil symbol in your town will be worth a victory point. If you are not the player with the most oil, then it takes 2 oil drops in your town to generate a victory point. You score points for the wanted cards that you collected. Each 3 coins you have at the end of the game is a single victory point. The people tiles that you collected during the game are also victory points. You put them all together and the player with the highest score is the winner of the game. I like this game quite a bit. I'm not particularly good at it, I've never won it, but I enjoyed every game that I played. Even the first one that is probably gonna be not as exciting as it could be. At least in my group, it was a little bit of a chore, it was a little bit of a drag. True is, we also had some new players that were not entirely familiar with this kind of hobby game, and then it just took them a long time to make their decisions, and that caused some analysis paralysis. But I don't think it's just new gamers or gamers new to the hobby. This is a very sandboxy game because you can just score in so many different ways. The best idea probably is to get a plan at the beginning, to try to stick with that idea and gonna score these 2-3 things in a long-term plan. But then that may not work because people keep taking the tiles that you would like to have for your beautiful cunning plan, and then you have to adjust. And that's why even if you tell players, to reduce downtime, why don't you start thinking about your next move while somebody else is going? You can do that, people can do that, but then somebody's taking the tile that they wanted right before it's their turn, and so they have to start their calculations again. And then you're thinking, I want to score with the inns and with the native settlements, but that doesn't work. Let's see if I can make the distillery and the saloons work, and that worked to an extent. Okay, I'll try to then go with the civic buildings, and so on and so forth. Oh, let's not forget the cottons and the railroad. Can I do my synergy with distillery and saloons while at the same time building a railroad and spreading around my cotton plantations? So there is a lot to take into account, a lot of ways to score. In a certain sense, it's almost reassuring, because it's really hard not to score anything. It's really hard to score really low, because almost if you play randomly, some combinations of scoring tiles will happen. But at the same time, it is challenging and therefore rewarding when you do play well in a superior fashion and you're able to in fact create better combinations that other players do. I still am not quite there, but I enjoyed even seeing other people creating those beautiful super mega scoring combinations. Yes, there is a luck element because of the roll of the dice and because the fact that the players are collecting tiles. That is nothing you can control, although they are sentient beings collecting tiles. From your perspective, that is indistinguishable from luck. So there's that luck element. At the same time, because of the sandboxing nature, then the plan doesn't work. You still have agency in the fact that you're not completely locked out of the game. You still can try to create another plan and move in a different directions. You can mitigate luck by spending resources, and that's always a nice trade-off in games. They didn't roll the die that I needed. I can spend a coin to do that. There's a certain effect. I can spend a coin, etc., etc., etc. So I like the fact that you do have luck, but you also have ways of mitigating that. It all comes together in a game that is very rewarding with nice interactions. Yes, there is indirect interaction because it is easy to see what the other players are trying to score, especially with 2 players. But when with 4, I see you're going for native settlements, then I'll try to beat you to that. I see you're going for the biggest oil production. I'll try to see if I can take some oil from you. So there even is that element that doesn't feel too confrontational. I'm just taking resources that you may need, as opposed to attacking you with my posse or something. Not too confrontational, but it has that element that prevents the game from feeling multiplayer solo. So a lot of interesting things. We have interesting interactions, interesting decisions, fun engines that you can build. The first game is not going to be very exciting, probably, and the second game may also be not very exciting if there is still somebody in your group that causes analysis paralysis. Again, that is a danger that I think may happen with this game. I haven't seen it happening too much. It hasn't been a problem, but in the early games it has been a presence. It hasn't been a problem, but it has been an element. Some downtime caused by players just feeling a little bit overwhelmed and not knowing where to go next. Overall, however, this is a game that I thoroughly enjoyed playing and one that I would recommend to players that enjoy Eurogames, because this is a nice implementation of all of the ideas that we liked about Eurogaming, and overall, they all come together in a very nice and fun design.